Hi, I'm Karen Santanum from Cedar Park, Texas, and I love Progress Texas. I listen all the time. I get the latest news on what's happening in my area. I just started a few months ago, but I'm hooked.
It's Wednesday, July 1st, 2026, and this is the Progress Texas Daily Dispatch, rapid response on the breaking news stories Texas progressives need to know. I'm Chris Mosier. Progress Texas amplifies progressive values, leaders, and actions through our no paywall podcasts and digital media. We make Texas politics easy to understand and to participate in, and your support for fact-based independent media hands the mic to millions of Texans. Big thanks to Yasmin Simon, Lisa Weiss, and Mark Tallarico for their ongoing sustaining support. Very much appreciated. Yesterday's action at the Supreme Court is a decidedly mixed bag for progressive Americans. We'll start with the good news here, I guess, and the most monumental case of the day, the Trump v. Barbara case, in which the court dealt a decisive blow to the Trump administration's anti-immigrant agenda by striking down a Trump executive order issued on his first day in office that had declared an end to birthright citizenship for children of undocumented immigrants and temporary visitors born on U.S. soil. Writing for the majority, conservative Chief Justice John Roberts reaffirmed that the 14th Amendment Citizenship Clause automatically protects nearly everyone born here. Roberts was joined by Trump appointee Amy Coney Barrett and the three liberal justices, but perhaps most striking here is the ease with which the remaining conservative justices dispensed with very plainly written constitutional language. Even Brett Kavanaugh explained that he was voting with the majority not because of the executive order's unconstitutionality, but rather because he believes it violates federal statutory law. Clarence Thomas, Samuel Alito, and Neil Gorsuch were all perfectly fine with allowing Trump to do whatever he wants here. So from the standpoint of accurate constitutional interpretation, this call can almost be viewed as a much closer 5-4 rather than 6-3. Had this gone the other way, which it very nearly did, a permanent multi-generational subclass of disenfranchised residents in America would have been created. In a statement issued yesterday, Progress Texas Executive Director Kathleen Thompson says, quote, Trump signed this unjust order on day one, and the Supreme Court has denied him for the third time total tyranny over our inheritance, over our nation of laws, unquote. And from Advocacy and Development Coordinator Tatum Owens, quote, on the cusp of America's 250th anniversary, this decision defends that we are a government of laws and not of men. But we are also fundamentally a nation of immigrants. As Frederick Douglass once said, a diverse origin does not disprove a common nature, nor does it disprove a united destiny, unquote. Texas Republicans are displeased by the birthright citizenship decision, as you might imagine. Ahmed Humble at the Houston Chronicle says Governor Abbott has called the 14th Amendment an absurdity. Chip Roy has called this very simple reading of direct constitutional language insane. And lame duck Senator John Cornyn, ever the tough guy, is touting a new bill called the Back Off Act that he says will, quote, put a stop to the practice of birth tourism, unquote. Yet another highly exaggerated and paranoid xenophobic solution in search of a generally minor problem. Babies born to non-citizens account for less than 1% of births annually in the U.S. So that's the good news. The bad news comes from the other two major SCOTUS calls made on Tuesday in the NRSC versus FEC case. The court also struck down longstanding federal limits on how much money political parties can spend in direct coordination with their candidates. Another escalation of the power of billionaires to mold American politics to their own whims and ends, as the deregulation of big money in politics becomes even further entrenched. What's bad news for you happens to be great news for Ken Paxton. Kayla Guo and Gabby Birnbaum at the Texas Tribune say that's because the wealthy Republican apparatus relies heavily on billionaire donors rather than the grassroots level support that has allowed James Tallarico to be competitive, and the NRSC versus FEC decision allows the Republican machine to flood Texas airwaves with huge media campaigns to bail out Ken Paxton's lagging operation. Digging a bit deeper here, this ruling allows political media buyers to access rock-bottom candidate advertising rates, which even further amplifies the power of big money in the Texas ad space. The will of Texas voters is now at a greater risk of being drowned out by the unleashing of Republican dark money dominance into the full range of critical congressional races across Texas, notably those in South Texas, where the efficacy of redistricting designed for Republican advantage has been in question. That question just got a lot more complicated. Also from Tuesday, another blow to transgender rights comes in the High Court's upholding of state laws in Idaho and West Virginia that bar transgender girls and women from participating in school sports aligned with their gender identity, a ruling with implications far beyond sports. A decision establishing biological sex as a valid basis for segregation provides a dangerous legal blueprint for dismantling transgender protections nationwide in the future. By greenlighting state-sanctioned surveillance and bodily policing, this ruling expands institutional discrimination, potentially foreshadowing an incoming wave of aggressive, far-reaching legislative assaults targeting vulnerable communities across Texas and beyond. And that's not all. Perhaps the worst news of this last 2 days of SCOTUS decisions comes from Monday's Trump v. Slaughter call, which is being seen as an absolute catastrophe for the future of American governance. That was a 6-3 party line vote striking down a 90-year-old precedent and handing Donald Trump the power to fire the heads of independent regulatory agencies at will. The Federal Trade Commission, the Securities and Exchange Commission, the Consumer Product Safety Commission, and others were specifically designed by Congress to police corporate monopolies, protect consumers, and regulate Wall Street, all of which requires a buffer against political interference in order to function. As of Monday, the president can immediately fire any regulator the president chooses. That's a massive win for big business under Trump and a massive loss for American workers, American consumers, and the environment. Let's also note that the Slaughter ruling embraces the so-called unitary executive theory, the constitutional doctrine popular among the Trumpies that asserts the president's absolute and unchecked personal control over the entire executive branch, including all federal agencies and their personnel. This ruling is a massive advancement of the ongoing effort to concentrate absolute power in the White House, and it clearly adds an additional layer of urgency to the midterm election, in which congressional Democrats will need all the help they can get in countering this consolidation of power ahead of the second half of Trump 2.0. As we wind down this morning, it's no surprise that Texas has been chosen as the location for an unprecedented national midterm Republican convention to be held in Dallas on Wednesday, September 9th and Thursday, September 10th. Yet another desperate move to re-energize the MAGA base in the Lone Star State as Republicans desperately cling to their razor-thin congressional majorities. We look for this Trumpapalooza in Texas to do about as well as his July 4th festival has, which has underperformed, to put it kindly. Coral Murphy Marcus at The Guardian says national Democrats have wisely chosen to bypass putting on a costly counter-convention in Dallas, choosing instead to focus their time and investment directly upon grassroots organizing to flip Texas blue this November. Houston listeners, the next episode of our In Progress Roundtable show will come to you on the radio in the middle of a new Thursday afternoon block of progressive political programming tomorrow. In Progress starts at 6:30 p.m. every Thursday on KPFT 90.1 FM after the Progressive Forum and before the midterm show with Ernest Wittring, and it runs a second time every Sunday morning at 11 on KPFT FM HD2. With your support, we hope to expand our radio footprint beyond Houston this year. See the link in the show notes to make your tax-deductible donation to help us reach new audiences via Texas Radio. And while you're at the website, hit the web store to grab the merch to match your progressive values. Newly released Humans Against Abbott, Y'all Means All, and Resist shirts, stickers, and buttons. Hit the web store at ProgressTexas.org to support your favorite podcast network today. That's the Progress Texas Daily Dispatch for this Wednesday, July 1st, 2026. Links to all these original stories can be found in our show notes. When lies in Texas are well funded by the far right, your support for fact-based reporting is needed and appreciated. I'm Chris Mosier. Thanks so much for listening. Have a great day. We'll see you again right here tomorrow morning.